Chapter 1435. She rushed over and splashed the wine glass on the secretary's face. She was a gangster and was used to fighting. She grabbed the secretary's hair, pinned her to the ground, and slapped her hard. As she slapped her, she scolded, "Little bitch, how dare you seduce Lu Jing? I'll beat you to death. How dare you seduce Lu Jing? Don't you know how old you are? You're really an old cow who wants to eat young grass." At that moment, there was silence in the private room. The secretary who was pinned to the ground was actually the client's mistress. The client was the first to react. He kicked Wu Lingling and sent her flying. Wu Lingling was kicked in the waist by the man. Before she could react, she curled up on the ground and screamed in pain. Lu Jing also reacted. Seeing Wu Lingling in pain, the anger in his heart dissipated. He couldn't be bothered to scold her and hurried over to check on her. The mistress, who was slapped a few times, threw herself into the client's arms and started crying. Tang Guo naturally wouldn't miss such an exciting scene. What a good show. System. Lingling, are you okay? It hurts. Wu Lingling's face was pale as she clutched her waist. Lu Jing hurriedly carried Wu Lingling up and looked coldly at the client. "President Lu, aren't you going overboard? No matter what, you shouldn't be so heavy-handed." "Too much? Manager Lu, I also want to ask why this crazy woman suddenly rushed into the private room and hit my secretary without a word. I was wondering who it was. So this crazy woman is your woman. Manager Lu, can you keep your woman in check? She can go crazy anytime. I don't know who she will bite next time." President Lu held his secretary's hand and left. He wanted to pursue the matter, but Lu Jing was the young master of the Lu family, and Wu Lingling looked seriously injured. Lu Jing's life would be more difficult if he lost this contract. There were many people who wanted to mess with Lu Jing. This young master of the Lu family was useless. As long as this crazy woman was around, he could forget about making a name for himself. Lu Jing wanted to blame Wu Lingling, but his heart softened when he saw her pale face. He carried her to the hospital for treatment. President Lu's kick was indeed not light. Wu Lingling was seriously injured. There was no way to pursue this responsibility. Wu Lingling also knew that she had misunderstood, so she kept apologizing to Lu Jing. In the end, the two of them reconciled. However, she did not know that Father Lu had already given up on Lu Jing and would not give him any chance to rise again. Therefore, Lu Jing's future was ruined by Wu Lingling. Tang Guo did not continue to pay attention to it. The system would keep an eye on it. It was said that Lu Jing was in an unimportant position in the Lu Corporation. He had no future and had become the laughingstock of the Lu family. Wu Lingling, on the other hand, was very satisfied because Lu Jing could finally come home on time. Even now, she was still very strict with Lu Jing. Both Mr. Lu and the Lu family knew about Wu Lingling, but she was just a pawn that had been abandoned. They did not care at all what kind of woman Lu Jing would marry in the future. Therefore, when Lu Jing arranged for Wu Lingling to work beside him, no one objected. In the blink of an eye, another few years passed. Tang Guo had already graduated from university. After she graduated, she took over her family's company and did not go to work elsewhere. As for Qiao Gu, she was promoted from Dr. Qiao to Secretary Qiao. The Peak. Chapter 1436. Gu Gu, I didn't expect you to be so good at everything. Qiao Gu was sitting in the office, helping Tang Guo with some documents. She looked up and smiled. I didn't know about these things at first, but after spending some time learning, I'll be able to do it. That's because Gu Gu is smart. Some people can't learn it in their entire lives. Tang Guo was not stingy with her praise. Let me make you a cup of coffee. You've worked hard. Why would I work hard? It's only right for me to help my wife. That's right. Qiao Gu had finally succeeded in obtaining his greatest achievement. On the day of Tang Guo's graduation, he had proposed to her and she had happily agreed. Father and Mother Tang had seen everything with their own eyes. How could they reject such an outstanding person? Their daughter was getting better and better. Now, everything was back on track. Qiao Gu was also devoted to Tang Guo. They couldn't be more satisfied. They had lived for so many years, but they had never seen such an infatuated follower. When their daughter was studying, Qiao Gu would be the school doctor. When she went to university, he would be the school doctor. When she returned home to take over the company, He would be their daughter's secretary. Sometimes, when they entered the company to discuss matters with Tanghua, they would see Xiao Gu sitting at the side, seriously handling the company's matters. Their precious daughter, on the other hand, was sitting in front of the computer, buying. They believed that their daughter would also be able to handle the company's documents. Otherwise, they wouldn't have trusted her with the company. As for why Xiao Gu was the one doing all these things now, it was obviously because he didn't want their daughter to tire herself out. Seeing this situation, the two of them were very satisfied. However, when there was no one around, for example, in the room at home when Tanghua wasn't home, they would hug each other and look at each other for a long time. Their eyes were red and there were tears in them. There was no need to say a word. They only used their eyes to convey the secret they wanted to say. Their daughter was good and outstanding. She had a bright future and a man who loved her. But if only they didn't have that dream, they would definitely be satisfied. That dream had already become their nightmare. They would never be able to forget it even after death. Even now, it was still deeply etched in their minds. The happier Tanghua was, the more tormented their hearts would be. They would recall over and over again everything that had happened to the Tanghua in their dreams. They thought of the culprit behind all this, Wu Lingling. Get married? Tanghua wasn't surprised, but Father and Mother Tang had come to inform her directly after hearing the news. It could be seen that the two of them were feigning ignorance and wanted to ask her what her plans were. Yeah, your aunt called yesterday and asked us to attend the wedding of Lingling and young Master Lu. There was no smile on Mrs. Tang's face. The way she saw it, Wu Lingling was such a bad person. How could she have married into the Lu family? So, after some discussion, the couple decided to look for Tanghua. They glanced at Xiao Gu, who was sitting behind her desk and seriously handling documents. Their mood improved a lot. We haven't been in contact with your aunt for many years, Mrs. Tang said. She invited all our relatives. Xiaogua, if you don't want to go, we'll turn her down. We don't have much to do with your aunt's family. She understood what Qin Rulan meant. Wasn't Wu Lingling marrying into the Lu family and becoming their daughter-in-law? She was marrying into a rich family. She would have to show off in front of her. Peak. Chapter 1437. Mrs. Tang did not want to see Qin Rulan's family at all, especially Wu Lingling. Wu Lingling had gotten involved with the young master of the Lu family and was about to marry into a rich family. Mrs. Tang felt that the heavens were blind. How could such an evil person like Wu Lingling have such a good life? Even if her roots were rotten, she would still be able to marry into such a family. Even if the young master of the Lu family was not that outstanding and did not have a high status in the Lu family. But for Wu Lingling's family, they were really climbing up the social ladder. The better off Wu Lingling was, the more upset Mrs. Tang felt. Mrs. Tang could not help but wonder if life would change for the better if one was shameless in this world. If one was shameless, one could live a long life and be blessed with good fortune. Tanghua could sense Mrs. Tang's discomfort because Wu Lingling's life would change for the better. She could not help but smile. Would Wu Lingling's life change for the better? No. From the day Wu Lingling married into the Lu family, she would no longer have a good life. Lu Jing's intelligence was something that the young master who was chosen to inherit the Lu family was wary of. He would not be at ease until he made sure that Lu Jing would never be able to make a comeback. Since it's the young master of the Lu family's wedding, it wouldn't be nice if Mom and Dad turned it down. After all, we have a partnership with the Lu family. Tanghua said. Mrs. Tang and Mr. Tang could not understand what Tanghua was thinking. Since she said that she would go, then she would go. They did not think that Tanghua would want Wu Lingling to have a good life. They were here to see Tanghua's attitude. Even though they did not want to admit it, this outstanding young lady was indeed not their daughter. No matter how smart their daughter was, there was no way she could have taken over their company in such a short period of time. In less than a year, she had expanded the company by more than 2 times. Tanghua was experienced in dealing with things. It could be said that even their business partners were not as capable as her. The two of them took a look at Xiao Gu, who was still working on the documents, seriously and bade farewell to Tanghua. They felt terrible staying here. Host, your parents look terrible. Aren't you going to comfort them? From the moment they found out the truth, they were no longer my parents. They were the original owner's parents. This is the punishment they deserve. No matter how bad it won't bring the original owner back. So, just bear with it. There are many people in this world who are more miserable than them. The system sighed. All right, this bad woman was still as hard-hearted as ever. She probably couldn't change that. Even if the guy she liked was disobedient and bullied her, he couldn't escape being thrown away in the end, let alone people like Mother Tang and Father Tang. Guogua, Dad and Mom don't look too happy? Actually, Xiaogu had long realized that Father Tang and Mother Tang were different from what he had imagined. With such a smart daughter like his wife, the couple didn't seem as happy as he had imagined. The two of them were proud of Tanghua, but there seemed to be something missing between them. Maybe Wu Lingling's matter made them unhappy. Xiaogu recalled the things that Wu Lingling had done in the past and understood a little. Even though he felt that there was more to the matter, he didn't probe any further. He really liked his current life. Even though he was busy, with his wife by his side, he was very happy. Tanghua looked at Xiao Ji's satisfied expression and couldn't help but laugh. Isn't Gugu too easily satisfied? After meeting him so many times, he's getting more and more easily satisfied. Peak. Even her peers who she thought were very outstanding but couldn't become rich and powerful had already exceeded her level of understanding. Some people were not from wealthy families, but they were able to gain the admiration and respect of those from wealthy families. Some people did not even dare to offend them. Everyone in the family was actually looking at Father and Mother Tang. When they heard that they were going to attend Wu Lingling's wedding, they also planned to go. On the day of Wu Lingling's wedding, the family Tang arrived at the venue together. Tanghua stood in the crowd, holding Xiao Ji's hand. Seeing that Wu Lingling and Lu Jing's wedding was not as grand as she had imagined, she smiled. Peak. Chapter 1439. Young Master Lu's wedding seems to be different from what we expected. The family Tang's peers were also discussing in low voices. The Lu Corporation was indeed a wealthy family. They had attended the wedding of one of the young masters of the Lu Corporation before. It was a grand occasion with a fleet of luxury cars worth more than 5 million yuan. It was very impressive. Wu Lingling and Lu Jing's wedding decorations seemed to be slightly better than those of the wealthy families. In fact, Wu Lingling was the one who was astonished and even displeased. She had attended the wedding of the heir of the Lu family with Lu Jing. She had always hoped that she would have such a grand and shocking wedding. That was why she had sent invitations to the family Tangs, and even to Tanghua's whom she had not been in contact with for many years. She wanted these people to see how well she, Wu Lingling, was living now. But the effect of the wedding was different from what she had imagined. Especially when the family Tang's members stood there, especially Tanghua and Xiaogu, they were more attractive than her and Lu Jing. She did not attend the wedding of Tanghua and Lu Jing. She only heard that it was a grand occasion and was even on the news at that time. Because of this, she was very unhappy. The wedding guests were speechless as she kept a straight face throughout the wedding ceremony. Lu Jing's mother did not like Wu Lingling. If Lu Jing had not insisted on Wu Lingling, she would have objected to it. But if Lu Jing really liked her so much, how could she, as a mother, bear to cut off her son's love? So she tolerated Wu Lingling's marriage. But now that Wu Lingling was giving her attitude at the wedding, she was so angry that her face turned pale. As for Father Lu, he only came because of Lu Jing's mother. He had long given up on his son, Lu Jing. The wedding was not too shabby, nor was it grand. It was just average. There were many people who came, most of them because of the Lu Corporation. No matter what, Lu Jing was the son of Father Lu's most beloved woman. They had to give him face. No one expected that today's wedding would be such a big event. Even Tanghua did not expect that some retribution would come so quickly. When the wedding ceremony was coming to an end, the MC started to play the highlights of Wu Lingling and Lu Jing's wedding. To put it simply, they were photos of their lives before they got married. In many weddings, in order to witness the growth of the couple's love, some photos of their daily lives would be shown. Everyone was curious as well. Wu Lingling was just a delinquent girl who hadn't even graduated from junior high school. How could she have the chance to marry Lu Jing? Even if Lu Jing's talent was mediocre and in everyone's eyes, he was still the young master of the Lu family and had an endless amount of money to spend. Everyone stared at the screen without blinking, especially the women who were present. Their faces were filled with interest. When the first photo was released, everyone was in an uproar. No one looked away as they stared intently at the screen. The photos were made into slides, appearing one by one and disappearing one by one. Wu Lingling and Lu Jing were facing the crowd. Seeing the shocked and incredulous looks on their faces, Wu Lingling thought that these people were surprised by the way she and Lu Jing usually interacted. Unknowingly, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. She even looked at Tang Guo with a smug look on her face. Until now, Wu Lingling still didn't know Qiao Ji's identity. She thought that Tang Guo had chosen to marry a school doctor after going to a famous university. She even laughed at her for a long time. Vertex. Chapter 1440. Even at Tang Guo's grand wedding, she had thought that the family Tang was the one who had paid for it. Therefore, when she saw Tang Guo's shocked expression, she felt even more smug. Dear host, Wu Lingling must not know what is on the screen yet she is smiling at you so proudly. She will probably cry later. To be honest, when the system saw those photos, it was also shocked. It did not keep tabs on the young master of the Lu family. The task given to it by the host was to keep tabs on Wu Lingling and Lu Jing, mainly to prevent them from finding an opportunity to turn their lives around. After all, they were the male and female leads, even if their halo was gradually diminishing because of Tang Guo's arrival. But no matter how good they were, they still had a halo and were much stronger than ordinary people. What were the male and female leads? As long as they were given the slightest chance, they could turn their lives around by chance. This was something that neither the system nor the host wanted to see. Tang Guo also did not expect that the heir of the Lu family would be so ruthless. On the day of the wedding, he actually played the photos of Wu Lingling and the gangsters in the form of a slideshow. Moreover, it was not censored. The slideshow was played at a very fast speed, and someone was controlling it. It was impossible to stop it immediately. When Lu Jing's mother saw it, she let out a scream and almost fainted from anger. Father Lu hurriedly held her up and did not have the time to stop the slideshow. Lu Jing and Wu Lingling did not have a good ranking in his eyes. The guests at the wedding were also shocked. When they came back to their senses, their eyes were wide open as they stared at the photos to identify them. Is that Wu Lingling? Heavens, it's actually Wu Lingling. Just how many hats does this Lu Jing wear? I counted. Among the men who have appeared so far, there are already 5 who have that kind of concern for Wu Lingling. I don't know if you have noticed, but Wu Lingling looked very young in the photos at the beginning. She seemed to be about 15 or 16 years old. So, she is not even an adult yet, and she is already involved with these men. Don't forget that Wu Lingling is just a delinquent girl who has not even graduated from junior high school. What can happen if she hangs out with gangsters all day long? Moreover, I heard that she was also with Lu Jing when she was still an adult. Tell me, at such a young age, she did not study hard, skipped classes, and got into fights. How can she be a good girl? The guests began to whisper among themselves. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. Wu Lingling, who had been feeling smug and thought that everyone was envious of the love between her and Lu Jing, felt uneasy when she heard these words. She hurriedly turned around. She happened to see an extremely large photo of her and 3 men intertwined. Every part of her body was clearly displayed in the photo, and it was even enlarged. Every detail could be seen clearly. At that time, her vision went black, her face turned pale, and her lips lost their color. She felt dizzy and fell to the ground. Lu Jing, who had always been protecting her, did not notice that the woman he liked had fallen to the ground. The photo on the screen attracted all his attention. Even the discussions of the outside world could not wake him up. The woman in the photo was Wu Lingling. Other people could doubt the authenticity of the photos, but he was Wu Lingling's man. Of course, he could recognize it more clearly. The photos were taken when Wu Lingling was still a minor and then an adult. Vertex. Chapter 1441. Until the last photo, when he saw the necklace around Wu Lingling's neck, Lu Jing's eyes stung. Lu Jing gritted his teeth, pursed his lips, and clenched his fists. Even though there were no more photos on the screen, his mind was still replaying the scene over and over again. In the last photo, the necklace around Wu Lingling's neck was a gift he had given her last week. So, This photo was taken within a week. From this, he could tell that all these years, Wu Lingling had enjoyed his love, spent his money and stayed at his place. But without his knowledge, she had been cuckolded one after another. He had held her in his hands and treated her like a jewel. But she had treated his feelings like trash and threw them away whenever she wanted. She had completely treated him like a fool. Lu Jing, listen to me. Wu Lingling had already regained her senses. Ignoring her sorry state and the mocking gazes around her, she hurriedly got up from the ground. She threw herself into Lu Jing's arms and hugged him tightly. She pleaded, Lu Jing, listen to me. This is not what you think. Then what is it? Lu Jing's voice was cold. The girl he felt was the warmest in this world was gone. The moment those photos appeared, all the hope in his life was gone. Lu Jing, they forced and threatened me. I didn't do it willingly. Wu Lingling's pale face was filled with tears. She was actually very beautiful. When she cried, people would want to take pity on her. If not for this incident, Lu Jing would definitely feel very sorry for her when he saw her like this. But now, he only felt disgusted. He pushed Wu Lingling away forcefully. Wu Lingling did not expect Lu Jing to use so much force to push her away. She was careless and fell to the ground. Her palms were sore from the abrasion. She could not care less. Lu Jing's indifference towards her made her panic. That kind of panic, as if the whole world was going to be destroyed. She could not lose Lu Jing. She could not lose Lu Jing. Lu Jing's kindness, indulgence, and love for her, as well as Lu Jing's money, were all things she could not lose. If she lost Lu Jing, what would she do in the future? Lingling, you don't have to explain. I saw it clearly just now. If you didn't consent to those scenes, would they have ended up like that? Everyone nodded in agreement. That's right. Wu Lingling actually dared to take such an explicit photo that would make one flustered. Judging from her body language and expression, she was not forced at all. She was willing. They weren't blind. They just felt that the life of a rich family was really messy. If it weren't for this sudden slide, Lu Jing probably wouldn't have known that Wu Lingling had cheated on him for so many years. Just when Wu Lingling wanted to say something, there was movement on the screen again. Brother Dao, I'm pregnant. Like I said before, can I wear a condom if I want to play? It was Wu Lingling's voice. I've already had an abortion once. Lu Jing and I have always taken safety precautions when we were together. Now that there's another one, it must be one of you. Everyone was in an uproar. This was really explosive. Then, a man's voice sounded. Can you be happy and comfortable wearing that thing? Besides, didn't you not reject it before? Vertex. Tanghua, don't quibble. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, would I have ended up like this? Wu Lingling said fiercely. Yes, it's all your fault. You must be happy to see me like this, right? You must be happy, right? You said that I let you down and caused you to end up like this. Then tell me, how did I let you down? How did I cause you to end up like this? Wu Lingling was already blinded by anger and despair. She didn't even think and said directly, if you hadn't lost your phone back then, causing me to be unable to get through and unable to give Brother Dao money, would I have ended up like this? The moment she finished speaking, everyone looked guilty. This Wu Lingling was really too shameless. Boss Tang was an undeserved disaster. Fupin the Peak. Chapter 1443. Wu Lingling, didn't you think about it seriously when you said that? I have no obligation to help you. You are angry that I lost my phone, didn't receive your call, and didn't send you money. That's why you got the gangster's phone and are still entangled with them until now, right? Isn't that right? Wu Lingling said angrily. If you didn't lose your phone and sent the money to Brother Dao, how could I have ended up like that? So, Tanghua, my current tragedy is caused by you. Facing Wu Lingling's shamelessness, the people present were refreshed. They had seen all kinds of shameless people, but they had never seen a completely shameless person like Wu Lingling. Wu Lingling, don't come out and make a fool of yourself. Calculating the time, Boss Tang is only 1 year older than you, right? At that time, you were in the 3rd year of junior high school and she was in the 1st year of senior high school. You didn't study well and fooled around outside all day long. You provoked the gangsters and were caught by them. You deserved it. You asked Boss Tang for help. Not to mention that Boss Tang lost her phone. Even if she didn't lose it, she has no obligation to save you. If she really received your call, Boss Tang may be kind enough to inform your parents or call the police. Do you understand? Boss Tang is not your parents. She can't control you, nor is she responsible for you. Your life is complicated. Whether you live or die, it has nothing to do with her. You're really shameless. You actually put all the blame for your depraved life on Mr. Tang. I've really learned something new about such a shameless person. And, Wu Lingling, in those photos, I didn't see your unwillingness. What's more, Lu Jing has been kept in the dark by you. You even had 2 abortions for those gangsters. In the end, Lu Jing was the one who took the blame. This is simply a joke. The surrounding people's accusations made those who had some relationship with Wu Lingling lose face. Lu Jing's mother was so angry that she couldn't speak. Lu Jing's father was relatively calm, but he was also very angry. Because of Wu Lingling, the Lu family had lost face to this extent. Qin Rulin and Wu Jun were Wu Lingling's biological parents. Just now, Qin Rulin was showing off to the surrounding people that Wu Lingling was her daughter. She had cultivated Wu Lingling with great difficulty. Now, Wu Lingling finally had a good home. In short, his words were full of praise for Wu Lingling and showing off to others. Especially when the family Tang group came, she even specially said in front of them that no matter how much she studied, it was useless. She would still not be able to marry into a rich family. Look at how capable and discerning her Lingling was. She was able to pick the right one. Qin Rulin was so proud of herself just now, but now she felt so embarrassed. Wu Lingling was just a junior high school graduate. How could she not know that? No, of course he did. If not for the fact that Wu Lingling had married into the Lu family, she would not have wanted to acknowledge this daughter of hers. All these years, she had been unable to raise her head. Now that Wu Lingling had married into a wealthy family, she could finally hold her head high and puff out her chest. Who would have thought that before he could vent his anger, he would embarrass himself in front of so many people? Those explicit photos seemed to have nailed her family to the pillar of shame. She was the one who suggested to invite the family Tang group. After today's incident, she could not hold her head high in front of anyone she knew, let alone in front of Mrs. Tang. Fuping Pinnacle. The two of them looked very compatible when they stood together. So, Wu Lingling, please don't use your jealousy to accuse me of a groundless crime. No matter how bad your life is now, it's all because of you, step by step. It has nothing to do with me. Wu Lingling widened her eyes. Qin Rulin couldn't hold it in any longer and slapped Wu Lingling's face. What a disgrace. Wasn't she ashamed? Looking at the eyes around her, she couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. She, Qin Rulin, had worked hard for most of her life. How could she raise such a daughter? Fuping Vertex. Chapter 1445. What kind of perfect man is he? Isn't he just a school doctor who lives off a woman? Wu Lingling covered her face and said stubbornly, what kind of ability is a man who lives off a woman? Even if I'm not as good as you in every aspect, my ability to find a man is much better than yours. When the people present heard Wu Lingling's words, they looked at each other. What did Wu Lingling say? Her ability to find a man was much better than Boss Tang's? She probably didn't know that the man who gave up on the medical world stage and was willing to stand beside Boss Tang had achieved so much at such a young age. He had done so much for the medical world that many people at the top of the medical world would respectfully greet him as their teacher when they saw him. Previously, they thought that Wu Lingling was shameless. Now, they felt that she was stupid and ignorant. That's right. What else did a woman who was born as a delinquent know besides spending a man's money? They really didn't understand how Lu Jing fell in love with such a woman. Tanghua, just as Wu Lingling was about to say something, Lu Jing had already regained his senses. He shouted, Wu Lingling, that's enough. Don't you think it's embarrassing? He didn't know Lu Jing in the past. After he returned to the Lu family and learned from Father Lu, he knew what kind of person Lu Jing was. Even Father Lu had to treat such a person with respect. He, Lu Jing, wasn't even qualified to carry his shoes. Lu Jing. Wu Lingling was stunned by Lu Jing's angry shout. Lu Jing, it's all Tangwa's fault. She caused all of this. I didn't want this to happen. Lu Jing, believe me. I didn't want this to happen. I've suffered so much. Everything was caused by Tangwa, that hypocritical woman who pretended to be a white lotus. If it wasn't for her, I would have lived a good life. Seeing that Wu Lingling still didn't regret her decision, Lu Jing felt a little tired. Many people asked him what was so good about Wu Lingling. He couldn't tell what was so good about Wu Lingling. He could only say that Wu Lingling had followed him since she was a teenager. He had to give her a future. In his heart, he liked Wu Lingling, but at the same time, he felt guilty. It was precisely because Wu Lingling felt guilty about having 2 abortions for him that he endured everything from Wu Lingling. Even if Wu Lingling's insensibility caused him to lose the opportunity to gain a foothold in the Lu group, he had never blamed her. Even if his mother showed disappointment or even disapproval, he would still insist on marrying Wu Lingling. Until now, he only felt that it was a joke. Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. Lu Jing walked to Father Lu and Mother Lu and said solemnly, cancel the wedding? No, I won't allow it. Lu Jing, how can you do this? How can you abandon me? You said that you want to marry me. How can you do this? Wu Lingling's expression was ferocious. She did not care about her dirty wedding dress and ran to Lu Jing. She hugged him tightly and said, I won't be calculative about Tangwa's mistake. Lu Jing, let's get married. Let's not be calculative about anything else. Let's let bygones be bygones, okay? Not good. Lu Jing pushed Wu Lingling away and said, Lingling, I have done enough for you and given up enough. So, please let me go. No matter how Wu Lingling shouted and screamed, Lu Jing had no intention of changing his mind. In the end, it was Father Lu who called for people to chase Wu Lingling out. Qin Rulin and Wu Jun also followed the crowd and walked out with their hands covering their faces. They did not dare to show their faces in front of the family. Fuping Chinese The Summit. Chapter 1446. It was only after Wu Lingling was chased out that Father Lu apologized to the guests. He said that there was no way Wu Lingling would marry into the Lu family. Everyone understood that Lu Jing was completely done for. There was no hope for him at all after what had happened. As long as the heir was capable, the Lu family would accept him regardless of his dark history. But after the news of Lu Jing being fooled by Wu Lingling spread, there was no way the Lu family would accept him. Besides, they were very satisfied with the current heir. The one who had caused everything today was the heir of the Lu family. He stood beside Father Lu the entire time and did not criticize or comment on Lu Jing and Wu Lingling. He merely consoled Father Lu, poured water for him, and asked if he was feeling unwell. Such a mature performance pleased everyone in the Lu family. They had to admit that with Lu Jing as a stepping stone, the heir had improved very quickly. He was no longer the young master of the Lu family who was proud of his achievements. The moment Tangwa and Xiaogu left, the heir's gaze landed on Tangwa's face. Tangwa turned back to look at him. Xiaogu immediately realized that the two of them seemed to have reached some sort of agreement. Of course, he trusted Tangwa. It was definitely not because he was emotionally involved with her. He had also discovered a secret today. Xiaogu was smart and could keep her composure. It was only when they reached home that she hugged Tangwa's waist and whispered, Guagua, I have a lot of questions. If I ask you, will you tell me? Ask away. I'll tell you. Xiaogu did not have much hope at first, but when she heard Tangwa's words, she was surprised. After all, the things he wanted to know were really her secrets. These secrets were not suitable for another person to know. Guagua, you have to think carefully. This is your secret. Aren't you afraid that I'll find out? Will you tell others, Gugu? No, I won't say it even if you beat me to death. If you're willing to tell me, I'll bury it in my heart. I won't even tell anyone when I'm in my coffin. That's it then. Besides, I'm not afraid of others finding out about these secrets. She did not care. Hence, she had nothing to fear. Xiaogu could sense her fearlessness. She sighed and asked, You lost that phone on purpose?
Yes.
So, Xiaogu had a scary guess in his heart. He felt that apart from this guess and combined with what happened today, this was the only possible explanation for Tangwa's behavior. So, Did Guogua know that Wu Lingling would call you that day? You knew what was going to happen. You even knew that this matter would implicate you and cause terrible consequences. That's why you chose to throw the phone away, right? Xiao Gu had already roughly guessed that his Guogua was an obedient student. Because of Wu Lingling's phone call, it was very likely that she was related to those hooligans. The hooligans were actually very interested in such obedient students. At that time, it would not be Wu Lingling who would suffer, but the baby in his arms. Can you tell me what would have happened if you hadn't lost the phone? Tangwa raised her eyebrows and smiled faintly. Sure. She couldn't be bothered to tell Xiao Gu those stories. She took out a golden millet dream and fed it to Xiao Gu. After the dream, Xiao Gu hurriedly pulled her into his embrace. His body was trembling. He was unable to accept everything that had happened in the dream. In the dream, they did not meet. It did not take long for him to return to the hospital. In that world, he achieved the pinnacle of medicine. Vertex. Chapter 1447. Tangwa nudged him. Gugu, that's not me. Since she had already used a pipe dream, there was no need for her to pin the original owner's misfortune on her. I'm just an avenger, not her. I've already helped her finish the life she wanted. In this life, I'll be standing on a dazzling stage in her name, looking down on Wu Lingling forever. I've also helped her take revenge on those who harmed her. Tangwa wrapped her arms around Xiao Ji's neck and kissed him on the lips. Once this is over, the rest will be our lives. System. The host has always been a principled person. Even if she's in a relationship, she won't forget about revenge. Xiao Gu calmed down and deepened the kiss. Guogua, I'm glad you're here. Otherwise, I'll be alone for the rest of my life. System. This guy really washed himself clean. To think that he actually found such a clean identity. If they really met in the future, would he be able to copy the other party's incantation? It seemed to be very powerful. If he had a grudge with the host, he would snatch it over. If he didn't, why would he need to snatch it? Guogua, what's going on between you and the successor of the Liu family? Tangwa couldn't help but smile when she heard the jealousy in his words. I have some business dealings with him. We've also cooperated on some other matters. I've also reached a condition with him. What condition? I can cooperate with him. But after he inherits the Liu family, he can't give Lu Jing a chance to make a comeback. To her, Lu Jing was the one who wanted to kill her. How could she allow Lu Jing to live comfortably? If she wanted to kill Lu Jing, it was easy. There were many ways to do it without anyone knowing. But killing Lu Jing wasn't enough to vent her anger. Lu Jing had killed the original owner because of Wu Lingling. Did Wu Lingling really not know? As the person who shared the same bed, she didn't believe that Wu Lingling didn't ask Lu Jing after the original owner died. Given how much Lu Jing liked Wu Lingling, he would definitely reveal some clues. But Wu Lingling chose to pretend that she didn't know. If she killed Lu Jing, the other party might be freed because of Wu Lingling's matter. Lu Jing had to live. With Wu Lingling around, he wouldn't be able to live in peace for the rest of his life. Also, I told him that Boss Dao and his group have some grudges with me. Tangwa smiled. He's a tactful person. He quickly gave up on that group of people and said that he wouldn't interfere. It's also because those people were too greedy and made him sick of it. It just so happens that we're working together, and each of us has our own goals. Xiao Gu didn't expect Tangwa to be so honest. She was truly fearless. His wife's background was very mysterious. Fortunately, I'm wholeheartedly pursuing Guogua. Otherwise, with how powerful you are, I don't know if you'll be moved in the future. System. Don't worry, other than you, there isn't anyone else who can move the host's heart. As long as you're obedient and don't do anything to betray or harm the host, you'll have a good life until the host recovers most of her memories. I want to do something, Gu. I'll accompany you. When Tangwa changed into the tattered leather clothes and put on the mask, Xiao Gu hurriedly hugged her. It's you? En? Xiao Ji's smile widened. She hugged her waist and kissed her head through the mask. So, that female cat burglar is you. Guogua, I found out your secret again. Gugu, I did it on purpose. Peek. As for Big Brother Knife's boss, she first slapped him twice on the face before using the knife to slowly land on the ground. Under his incomparably horrified expression, she slowly castrated him. In order to prevent him from fainting from the pain, she even gave him an injection. This was an interstellar medicine. It could allow this oily and disgusting man to maintain his consciousness for 3 days. He wouldn't faint from the pain and wouldn't die from it. Xiaogu couldn't see Tangwa's expression, but she could feel that she was very happy. When she threw out a huge stack of documents from her backpack, he hurried over. These? The proof that they should be castrated, as well as the bad things they have done all these years, are all recorded here. How can you just cut off their manhood? If they should go to jail, they still have to go to jail. The hoodlums who were in pain. You're really amazing. Peak. Chapter 1449. Don't worry, you won't die. Tangwa looked at the gangsters who were curled up on the floor, holding their crotches in pain. Their faces were pale. It'll be too easy for you if you die. Brother Knife was among them. It wasn't that they didn't want to fight back, but no one could resist this mysterious woman. Who are you? Brother Knife's boss, the greasy-looking man, asked as he stared at Tangwa viciously while enduring the pain. It looked like he was planning to take revenge in the future. Tangwa didn't tell him who she was, nor did she take off her mask. Only a fool would leave something for the other party to use against her. I am the messenger of revenge from hell. Brother Knife's boss wasn't satisfied when he didn't get the answer he wanted. But as long as he lived in this world, he would find this despicable woman no matter the cost. No matter if she was a god or a Buddha, he would kill her. It wasn't until half an hour later when the police surrounded the place and took everyone away that he realized that something was wrong. He thought that he had a lot of information that could be used against those who had done a lot of dirty things in the dark. The other party would definitely think of ways to save him so that he wouldn't be in trouble. However, he didn't get any of that. Instead, he met these people at the police station. When he saw these people being arrested, 2 words flashed in his mind. It's over. A huge prostitution and crime case had been solved in the city, and it involved a lot of people. But the evidence that Tangwa asked the system to collect was too much. The sudden evidence caught these people off guard, and they were all arrested. When this incident was reported, Tangwa and Xiaogu, who were sitting on the sofa in the living room, saw it too. Tangwa didn't care about what happened next. She did what she wanted to do. With the evidence, no one could escape punishment. As for how those gangsters became eunuchs, many people thought that they had done a lot of bad things and someone wanted to take revenge. As for the person who took revenge, there was no way to investigate. Compared to what they had done, this was insignificant. Many places were talking about this incident, even Tangwa's company. The people who discussed it never suspected Tangwa. That was because she had always been glamorous since she was young. She always stood in the brightest and most dazzling position. Wu Lingling couldn't help laughing out loud when she heard that those gangsters had been arrested. However, after laughing, she felt that the whole world was dark. Lu Jing didn't want her anymore. No matter how much she cried, how much she begged, how pitiful she was, Lu Jing refused to see her. Those hooligans had been arrested, and she had no way to rely on them. In the end, she chose to go home. You Jinx, why did you come back? Do you think we haven't lost enough face? Wu Lingling knocked at the door of her house. Wu Jun happened to be drunk. Seeing Wu Lingling, he got angry and slapped on her face. Get out. I don't have such a shameful daughter like you. Wu Lingling glares at Wu Jun with hatred. With a bang, Wu Jun closes the door. Wu Lingling waited at the door. When Qin Ruolin returned, she called out, Mom, why did you come back? Qin Ruolin looked around subconsciously, as if to see if there was anyone around. She was afraid that someone would find that Wu Lingling was back. At the top. No matter if it was the Wu Lingling in the Golden Millet Dream, or the current Wu Lingling, they all hated her. Wu Lingling, who was here, was constantly thinking of putting the blame on their daughter and generating countless malice. In the end, Wu Lingling chose to ask for help from a few of her close friends. There were a total of 4 people, and all 4 of them were married. 3 of them said that they couldn't take her in. They even said that they were having a hard time and chose to give her 200 yuan in red packets. 200 yuan per person, 600 yuan in total. The 4th girl transferred 5,000 yuan to Wu Lingling. At the same time, she said that her life was ordinary and she had a family, so she couldn't help much. At the same time, she was also advising Wu Lingling to find a job that provided food and accommodation. Vertex. Chapter 1451. That friend told Wu Lingling that if she worked harder, she wouldn't starve to death in today's society. She had to first find a place to live and settle down before thinking about the future. She was only in her 20s and was still young. Her future was still unknown and anything was possible. Actually, she had complained about Wu Lingling in her heart, but Wu Lingling had indeed given her a lot of benefits. She gave her $5,000 to persuade her and point her in the right direction. Everything was settled then. Now, she had a husband and a son. Although she wasn't considered rich, she regretted her ridiculous life. Wu Lingling was responsible, but the biggest responsibility was herself. She was insensible, weak, and lost, which led to this outcome. Regardless of whether Wu Lingling listened or not, she hung up the phone as soon as she finished speaking. It was a farewell to her past. Her current husband knew about her past and chose to forgive her. He said that as long as she was willing to lead a good life, they would continue. She couldn't lose this hard-won happiness because of Wu Lingling. Wu Lingling looked at the $5,000 on her phone and heard the other party's words. She said angrily, all ingrates, all ingrates. When I was rich, all of you came to my side. Now that I'm down and out, all of you are hiding far away. None of you are sincere. Just you wait. When I, Wu Lingling, rise up, don't regret it. One day, Tangguo was in the office, moving the mouse and buying things. Xiao Gu was sitting at the side, handling the company's documents. Occasionally, Tangguo would get up and make some coffee and food for him. In order to not let Xiao Gu get hungry, she even moved the oven to a cubicle in the office. When she was free, she would go in and make some food. Xiao Gu felt that although he was busy, he was surrounded by happiness every day. There was coffee made by his wife, biscuits baked by him, and fruit that his wife fed him personally. These days were really blissful. The system suddenly reminded Tangguo. Host. Wu Lingling chose to be a hostess. Because she is pretty, she went to a high-end place to hook up with a good man. I heard her say in the washroom that she wanted to make Lu Jing regret. Oh, Tangguo replied and didn't care about it anymore. The system knew that if Wu Lingling wasn't in a good mood, its host would definitely be in a good mood. Another day, the system said, Host, Wu Lingling successfully became a boss's woman. She is now in the shopping mall where you are. If you walk straight, you should meet her. Tangguo was holding Qiao Jiyi's hand, planning to go to the mall to help him choose clothes. She didn't expect to meet Wu Lingling here. Before she could move, Wu Lingling was already in front of her. Wu Lingling's clothes were more enchanting and revealing. A fat man was holding her slender waist. When she was 3 meters away from Tangguo, she saw Tangguo. Tangguo didn't move either. The two of them looked at each other. Wu Lingling, who is wearing heavy makeup and revealing clothes, looks at Tangguo, who is as pure and white as before. Her face suddenly changes color. She said sweetly to the man beside her, Brother Chun, let's go over there and take a look, okay? She didn't want to see Tangguo, unless one day she could surpass Tangguo. That boss had already noticed Tangguo, and a smile appeared on his face. Peak. Chapter 1452. Why are you leaving? I saw Boss Tang and Secretary Qiao. Of course, I have to say hello before leaving. Boss Chen ignored Wu Lingling and walked up to Tangguo with a smile, intending to shake hands with her. Tangguo smiled. Xiao Gu reached out and shook hands with Boss Chen. Boss Chen did not think much of it. He had heard that Secretary Qiao was very nervous about President Qiao. It was normal for her to behave like this. Moreover, Secretary Qiao was not just Secretary Qiao. He felt honored to be able to shake hands with her. Boss Chen, are you so free? Xiao Gu asked. She did not care about Wu Lingling, who was standing aside and unwilling to come up. Boss Chen was a little unhappy. He frowned and turned to stare at her. Why are you still standing there? Come up and say hello to Boss Tang and Secretary Chiao. How could Wu Lingling go up? With her arrogant personality, she would never bow down in front of Tangua. Even if Tangua did not say anything, she would not deliberately suppress her. She was still the inferior and arrogant Wu Lingling. She would never be willing to accept what she thought was humiliation. As long as she did not surpass Tangua, she would feel humiliated standing in front of her. Therefore, she did one thing. She took her bag on the spot and walked away without caring about Boss Chun. Now that she was young and had the capital, there were many people who flattered her. Even if there were many bad rumors about her, those men who only wanted to play liked someone like her who was open-minded. They did not mind at all. After all, they did not need to marry her. I'm really sorry, Boss Tang, Secretary Chiao. Boss Chun was a little embarrassed. I didn't expect you to be such a disobedient thing. Tangua and Xiaogun naturally didn't mind. After greeting him, the two of them continued shopping. Boss Chun was embarrassed by a woman like Wu Lingling. Of course, he was unhappy. Therefore, he announced that he would not flatter Wu Lingling that day. He chose an obedient girl to flatter. Wu Lingling was domineering and arrogant. At first, many people wanted to flatter her because she was indeed very beautiful. But these people who spent money were bosses. It was fine if she was willful once or twice, but if it happened a few more times, they would lose patience. Therefore, within a year, those rich people stopped looking for Wu Lingling. Wu Lingling had always been a spendthrift. She had never been poor before. Only when the money was spent and the credit card was maxed out did the crisis occur. As the saying goes, once you enter this line of work, it's not easy to get out. You'll only sink deeper and deeper. Wu Lingling, who was at the end of her rope, changed from a drinking girl to a sleeping girl. As long as there was enough money, she was willing to do anything. She felt that since she had slept with many men before, it would be too easy to earn a lot of money just by sleeping with them. When Tangua heard that, she didn't care. For the rest of the time, other than developing the company and being lovey-dovey with her man, she worked hard to improve herself in this world, to make herself look better and better, to become more and more glamorous. She had said before that in this life, she would live a glorious life, stand in the most dazzling position, and be the center of attention of countless people. She was able to achieve the dream that the original owner couldn't achieve, and she was very happy doing it. He hoped that these admiring and envious gazes would be able to wash away the filth on the original owner's soul. For several years, she didn't pay any attention to Wu Lingling. The system was tactful and didn't say anything. Anyway, as long as Wu Lingling didn't have a chance to make a comeback, the host wouldn't care. The next time she heard about Wu Lingling was when she was arrested for murder. The peak. Chapter 1453. She killed someone? Tangua asked in astonishment. Who did she kill? System. It was Lu Jing. What happened? Lu Jing knew about the things that Wu Lingling did. After hearing about Wu Lingling's past, he finally gave up. He decided to let go of Wu Lingling. Moreover, Lu Jing's mother's health was really bad. She passed away a few months ago. Before she passed away, she hoped that Lu Jing would forget Wu Lingling and marry a virtuous wife. She didn't want him to be successful, but she wanted him to live a peaceful and happy life. Lu Jing agreed. Yes, of course he agreed to his mother's last words. On account of Lu Jing's mother, Father Lu found him an ordinary and virtuous girl. Not long after, the two got engaged. Wu Lingling heard about Lu Jing's engagement from one of her customers. She even found out about the wedding date. At this point, the system coughed lightly. Actually, the reason why the customer told Wu Lingling about it was because the heir of the Lu family benefited. Not only did the host want Lu Jing to have a hard time, the heir didn't want Lu Jing to have a good life either. Even though Lu Jing was in a disadvantageous position and had a very ordinary position, he still did his job better than many people. He was afraid that Lu Jing would turn around and find out about Wu Lingling's current situation. He was afraid that Lu Jing would find someone to tell Lu Jing about the marriage. And then, Tangua only had business dealings with the heir of the Lu family. They basically didn't communicate at all. However, the other party's methods were getting more and more ruthless. On the day of the wedding, Wu Lingling brought a knife into the venue. Who would have thought that she would stab Lu Jing in the heart in front of everyone, causing him to die on the spot? The system said weakly. She even told Lu Jing that she could accept that he didn't want her, but she couldn't accept him marrying someone else. If that was really the case, she would stab him to death. That way, no one would be able to have him. Perhaps, this could be considered true love. So, my enemies all got what they deserved. System. After talking for so long, this is the conclusion that the stupid host came to? Thinking about everything in this world, it was really terrifying. The host only changed one aspect, and the male and female leads' halos were lost. Yet, things had developed to this point. In fact, it was normal when he thought about it. It would be very difficult for ordinary people to turn things around in Wu Lingling's position. Without the help of luck, the male and female leads were also ordinary people. They couldn't compare to the supporting characters who were more outstanding than them. Qin Rulin and Wu Jun knew about this. When they were questioned by the police, they directly said that they had broken off their relationship with Wu Lingling. Whatever she did had nothing to do with them. They didn't recognize this daughter. In their hearts, they only blamed Wu Lingling for losing face. They were not worried about Wu Lingling's life at all. Wu Lingling was not sentenced to death. Instead, she was sentenced to life imprisonment. Perhaps the Lu family did not want her to die too easily. No matter how much Father Lu disliked Lu Jing, the woman he loved the most was dead, and Lu Jing was killed by Wu Lingling. Because of this woman, he had lost face twice. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get over it. When Wu Lingling was sentenced to life imprisonment, her body quivered and her mind went blank. She looked at her surroundings and felt very lost. When she recalled everything, she shouted, "No, it's not like that." Vertex. Chapter 1455. Your Highness, look, the one reading poetry over there is this year's new top scholar. Tanghua was currently sitting in the sedan chair. The curtain of the sedan chair was lifted by her personal palace maid, allowing her to clearly see the handsome man who was being embraced by people outside. This new top scholar not only has good drawing skills, but he also knows how to compose poems. In this imperial city, many scholars have come here because of his reputation. They all want to see this new scholar. Her personal palace maid, Wan Zhu, whispered into Tanghua's ear, "Your Highness, what do you think of him?" Tanghua glanced outside again. That new top scholar was indeed not bad-looking. Listening to the other party's voice, he seemed to have some knowledge. To be able to become the top scholar, under normal circumstances, it was impossible for him to be mediocre. He definitely had some ability. Other than her sedan chair that was parked here, there were many noble young ladies and talented girls in the imperial city that came to see this new top scholar. Baixia had an open culture, and there was no custom that women could not show their faces. It was only because her identity was the princess of Baixia that she had to be more reserved. No matter how much attention the new top scholar attracted, she could not lose her status and directly get off the sedan chair to meet him. Wan Zhu did not know that the person in the sedan chair had already changed. She was still tirelessly talking about the new top scholar, Lu Qing. Her eyes were also shining. If she was not beside Tanghua, she would have already rushed over and shouted at Lu Qing like the other girls to express her love. "Your Highness, do you think this Lu Qing top scholar is good to be the prince consort?" Wan Zhu used the best words she could think of to praise Lu Qing. After that, she finally remembered the purpose of this trip. The new top scholar was definitely talented and good-looking. The most honorable princess of Baixia had also reached the age of marriage. Tanghua's purpose of this trip was naturally to see how this top scholar was. If she took a fancy to him, she would ask if he was willing to marry. If he was not, she could recruit him as the prince consort. Wan Zhu felt that Lu Qing was not bad. However, she couldn't figure out Tanghua's thoughts. In fact, she couldn't wait for Tanghua to agree immediately. She was the personal palace maid of the princess. In the future, she would definitely be in charge of the trial marriage. Tanghua saw through Wan Zhu's thoughts, and her lips curved into a smile. For the man she fancied, don't even think about using a personal palace maid to test the marriage. If he dared to test the marriage, she would break his legs. Let's wait and see. Listening to Tang Guo's indifferent voice, Wan Zhu's enthusiasm dissipated a little. From the looks of it, Her Royal Highness was not very satisfied with the Crown Prince. Wan Zhu was a little disappointed, but he did not dare to say more. Tang Guo put down a corner of the curtain and inadvertently glanced at it. She found that Lu Qing was looking in her direction. He seemed to be disappointed that she had put down the curtain. Then, in the sedan chair, she heard Lu Qing's voice reciting the poem even louder. Host, the other party is attracting your attention. Let's receive the memory first. I don't think he is a good person. Let's see what unhappy things happened between the original owner and him. If there is any hatred, we can talk about it later. The system quieted down. When Tang Guo was receiving the memory, she directly blocked out Lu Qing's voice. He looked at that Lu Qing and also felt that he was not a good person. In 15 minutes, Tang Guo finished reading all the memories. She gently lifted a corner of the curtain. Lu Qing seemed to have noticed it. He quickly straightened his body and recited a love poem, causing the surrounding women to scream. On the surface, she didn't say anything, but in reality, she was very impatient with Lin Yuexiang. Lin Yuexiang only felt that Lu Qing was a scholar, so he should have some arrogance. So, she calmly took care of the family. She also thought that Lu Qing was talented and would definitely be able to pass the imperial exam in the future. So, she gave all the good food at home to Lu Qing. Until Lu Qing felt that he was afraid that the imperial exam in a few years would affect his performance. In addition, there was news of a distant relative in the capital. Lin Yuexiang, of course, supported him. She sold everything that could be sold at home, and even went to her maternal family to get some money. She was afraid that she would mistreat Lu Qing. Just like that, Lu Qing sought refuge with a relative in the imperial city. This distant relative also didn't know about his marriage. The peak. Chapter 1457. She thought that he had been too busy studying to care about these things. Therefore, when the Empress sent someone to investigate, she found that Lu Qing was not married, so she asked the Emperor to take Lu Qing as the Emperor's son-in-law. Of course, Lu Qing was very happy to marry the princess, but he was still very worried. His first wife, Lin Yuexiang, was always a thorn in his heart. Once this matter was exposed, he would be guilty of deceiving the Emperor and would be beheaded. Lu Qing did not want everything to turn to dust after he had worked so hard to get to where he was now. Therefore, after he got married, he sent his confidants to spy on Lin Yuexiang. Once Lin Yuexiang wanted to enter the imperial city to look for him, he would let these people stop her. He hid these things from the original host. Wan Zhu happened to be the personal palace maid who helped them to try out the marriage. She could be considered as Lu Qing's half-woman. In order not to arouse the original host's suspicion, he secretly subdued Wan Zhu and made her one of his own people. Wan Zhu was very infatuated with Lu Qing. Almost everything she did was for Lu Qing. Many times, when the original host was a little suspicious, she would be dispelled by Wan Zhu's words. Wan Zhu was the personal palace maid chosen by the Empress for her. She grew up with her, so the original host's guard was the lowest. It happened 10 years after the original host and Lu Qing got married. During this period, Lin Yuexiang wanted to come to the capital many times to find Lu Qing. But because of Lu Qing's various obstructions, she did not succeed. Until Lin Yuexiang's father went to a faraway place and heard some things. Among these things, there was the matter of Lu Qing becoming the emperor's son-in-law. Lin Yuexiang was very anxious. She was very disappointed with Lu Qing and had some hatred. No matter what, she had to ask Lu Qing what was going on. Moreover, seeing was believing. Only by seeing with one's own eyes could one know the truth. What if Lu Qing didn't do it willingly and the emperor personally gave the order to force him to become the emperor's son-in-law? Such thoughts were actually very normal in the hearts of these commoners. The Lin Yuexiang's family members advised her to let it go, but she was stubborn and refused to let it go. She insisted on finding Lu Qing to clarify things. One day, she brought her son and daughter, LV Yufan and LV Yuji. They secretly avoided people and rushed towards the imperial city. However, Halfway through, their whereabouts were still discovered. Lu Qing panicked when he found out. He was unwilling to give up his current glory and wealth. Once Lin Yuexiang came to the imperial city to make trouble, not only would he lose his reputation, he might even lose his head. Therefore, he felt that this trouble must be eliminated. Therefore, he went all the way and sent assassins to kill Lin Yuexiang and her children. Chapter 1458. In order to climb up the social ladder, Lu Qing killed his wife and children, which caused an uproar in the court. The emperor was furious and wanted to kill Lu Qing. At this time, Lu Qing actually knelt on the ground and cried in front of him. He said that he was forced to do it. How could he kill his wife? Lu Qing's words made everyone calm down. They thought that there was a reason. The emperor was not an unreasonable person. He also wanted to hear what Lu Qing had to say. After all, he was the new top scholar that he personally selected. If there was really a problem with his character and he did such a bad thing, he would also bear the reputation of not knowing people. Lu Qing took a deep breath and said, "Father, I was not willing to marry the princess." When these words came out, everyone was shocked. Wasn't the prince consort and her highness the princess in love with each other? Every time they saw them, they felt that they were a very compatible couple. Then tell me, why did you marry the princess? Princess, you forced me to do all of this. Lu Qing's face was sad. This was originally a secret that I hid in my heart for a long time. If the princess did not do it so viciously, I also planned to hide it for a lifetime and not say it. I really didn't expect that the princess would not keep her words. I had already agreed to marry her, but she still wanted to kill my wife and children. Lu Qing's words made everyone's shocked expression unable to be hidden. Thinking about it carefully, didn't it mean that the prince consort was willing to marry because the princess used his wife and children to threaten him? Even when he said that he was not married, it was also because of the princess's coercion. In order to let his wife and children live well, he chose to swallow his anger and stay by the princess's side. He did not ask about the safety of his wife and children. He only thought that the princess should keep her words. He never thought that he trusted the princess wrongly. If the new top scholar, his son, LV Yufan, did not appear, he was afraid that he would be kept in the dark for the rest of his life. Now that the princess had killed his wife and child, no man would be able to tolerate it. He would definitely expose everything. The emperor naturally did not believe it. How could his daughter do such a thing? His most honorable princess was gentle, virtuous, and courteous. She was definitely not the kind of person who would harm innocent lives. However, Lu Qing produced evidence. The letter from the assassin sent by the princess and Wan Zhu, the princess's personal maid, testified. Both witnesses and evidence were present. The two top scholars wanted to seek justice. Even the high and mighty princess would not be able to escape the blame when the hearts of the people were on her. Naturally, the host was punished. But because she was a princess, she was only stripped of her title and demoted to a commoner, trapped in a nunnery for the rest of her life. All of this happened too quickly. The crown prince wanted to help the original owner of the body, but because of the covetous third prince and Lu Qing, he was quickly pulled down from his position. The third prince's younger sister, the second princess, had taken a fancy to Lu Qing. In the end, the third prince became the crown prince and took away the emperor's power, forcing him to abdicate and become the emperor. Granting the marriage between the second princess and Lu Qing, LV Yufan only felt that he had taken revenge. As for who Lu Qing was with, it was not important. At this time, LV Yuji appeared. LV Yuji was chosen by the third prince because of the title of the top courtesan. She entered the inner court and was now one of the concubines. The peak. Chapter 1459. Once, he accidentally overheard the conversation between the third prince and Lu Qing. Only then did he know the truth. After LV Yufan found out the truth from LV Yuji, he was extremely vexed. Now that the third prince had become the emperor and Lu Qing had joined the third prince, they held the highest authority and could not do anything to Lu Qing. Thus, they planned to assassinate him. Of course, they did not succeed. Because the Lu Qing of this world was the male lead. Even LV Yuji and LV Yufan were his sons. It was impossible for them to deal with him. In the end, both of them were killed, and it was announced that it was done by an enemy country. From then on, Lu Qing had a meteoric rise. He had many children and was very happy. What a cruel person. After Tangwa recalled the plot, she commented. Emir Lu Qing, who was born as a poor scholar and whose parents had both died, actually used the princess to reach the heavens in a single step. Lin Yuexiang, his son and daughter, as well as the original owner of the body, the emperor, were all stepping stones under his feet. The third prince had something on Lu Qing, so he naturally dared to use someone like Lu Qing. The emperor liked to use this kind of person who had something on him. Only then would the other party be obedient. Lu Qing was already below one person and above 10,000 people. He was not afraid that the third prince had something on him. His surname was Lu, and it was not that simple to change the dynasty. It was better to follow the third prince and obtain a lifetime of glory and wealth. Host, what should we do with this world? Look at that Lu Qing. He is still throwing flirtatious glances at you. After seeing those things, I only feel that he is greasy and disgusting. Tangwa was amused by the system's words. It is a bit disgusting. Ruthless and heartless. No wonder he could climb so high. But since the host came, he would not have a good life. Host, what do you plan to do? I don't like him, and I don't want to have any emotional entanglement with him. Didn't my second sister also like Lu Qing? Let the two of them flirt. Tangwa hooked a leg of the curtain and glanced at Lu Qing's position. She called out to Wan Zhu, who was standing at the side with an infatuated face. Wan Zhu, return to the palace. Your Highness, what about the new top scholar? Wan Zhu thought that Lu Qing was such a good person, Tangwa should like him. Now that she heard Tang was in different voice saying that she wanted to return to the palace, she was a little anxious. The princess did not like the top scholar. She had no chance to get close to him. What does he have to do with me? Return to the palace. Your Highness, actually, said Lu Lu N. Lu Lu Yu Lu Yu, Lu Yu, Lu Lu E, Lu 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 Yu Yu, Lu Luv. After the palanquin was carried away, Wan Zhu panicked and hurriedly followed. The princess was angry. Chapter 1460. This palace maid was the personal palace maid of the second princess. Lu Qing's originally disappointed mood suddenly improved. There was a smile on his face. May I know who this young lady's master is? My master is the current second princess. The palace maid handed a folding fan to Lu Qing. Her Highness just saw the talent of Lu Zhuangyuan and admired him even more. Thus, she ordered me to give this folding fan to you. There is a poem on it that the princess doesn't understand, so she wants to consult Lu Zhuan. Of course, Lu Qing wouldn't refuse such a good thing. Moreover, he was just a top scholar. How could he refuse the princess's invitation in front of everyone? Although his heart was leaning towards the eldest princess, he couldn't offend the second princess. Thus, he accepted the folding fan in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. His expression was incomparably admirable. Since it's the second princess's request, this one will definitely carefully read the poem on the folding fan and answer it well. Young lady, please wait a moment. Lu Qing's calm performance made the surrounding people admire him. It also made the second princess, Tang Shi, who was hiding in the palanquin, very satisfied. She liked this new top scholar even more. Not long after, the personal palace maid handed the poem that Lu Qing had answered to Tang Shi. Even if Tang Shi liked Lu Qing, she couldn't directly go up to meet him. That would make people look down on her. It would also damage her dignity. Thus, she reluctantly left. Your Highness, you really don't like Lu Zhuangyuan? Wan Zhu followed the palanquin and said while wiping the sweat on his forehead, that's the top scholar. He also has a dignified appearance and is overflowing with talent. He's currently the most outstanding man. Tangwa glanced at Wan Zhu and smiled. There are countless talents in the imperial city. In terms of appearance, there are many who are more handsome than Lu Qing. In terms of talent, there is always someone better than you. How could he, the new top scholar, become the most outstanding man? But this consort doesn't like him. Tangwa chuckled when she saw Wan Zhu's disappointed expression. Wan Zhu, could it be that you've taken a liking to him? If you really like the new top scholar, Ben Gong can make the decision to bestow you to him. How about it? Of course, Wan Zhu was willing to become Lu Qing's woman. However, she didn't want to be given to him as a concubine. Without the support of the princess, she would be a thorn in the eyes of the future matriarch and would not have a good life. Unless the princess took a fancy to Lu Qing and wanted him to be her son-in-law, she would help the princess try out the marriage and become Lu Qing's woman. Wan Zhu did not say anything else. After Tangwa entered the palace, she went to see the empress. The empress looked at her and asked, "Guo, how is the new top scorer?" Once they were famous in the imperial city, there would naturally be people who would spread the news to the palace. He could spin some silver tales to find out what was going on in the palace. Since it was something that everyone knew, it was fine. The people in the palace didn't mind telling them. For people like Tangwa, she had already sealed off the news from her palace. She didn't even allow the people around her to talk about Lu Zhuangyuan. Not to mention the people outside the palace. Even the people inside the palace might not know what was going on inside. Lu Qing naturally didn't know that Tangwa had already blocked his messages. No matter how hard he tried, it wouldn't reach her ears. About half a month later, Lu Qing was very disheartened when he saw that there was no result. Fortunately, there was still news from Tang Shi, but he was very unwilling. From the beginning, he was aiming for the eldest princess. Everyone in the northern Xia kingdom knew that the eldest princess was the most favored one. Moreover, she was the daughter of the empress and had a noble status. A few days later, Lu Qing heard a piece of news and was overjoyed. The peak. Chapter 1462. To admire the flowers? Wanju said in a low voice, "That's right. It's currently spring and the flowers are blooming. Your Highness hasn't left the palace for more than half a month. Do you want to go take a look?" Tangwa recalled the plot. At this time, the original owner was already exchanging letters with Lu Qing. She was wholeheartedly devoted to Lu Qing, the great scholar, and did not invite her brothers and sisters to admire the flowers. As mentioned before, Bei Xia was very open. If the princess and the prince wanted to leave the palace, they only needed the emperor's permission. If it was someone like Tangwa who was favored, they could leave the palace at any time. The only ones who were truly restricted were the palace servants and the emperor's concubines, who were not allowed to leave the palace. Then let's go. When Wanju heard this, he was overjoyed. Tangwa glanced at the other party. This girl really didn't learn her lesson. If it wasn't for the fact that she was still useful, she would have beaten Wanju. This person who gave false testimony and caused the original owner to be lonely and helpless. In the end, she would not let him go. She would only chase him out of the palace or secretly kill him. That would be too easy on him and would not be enough to vent her anger. Since the other party liked Lu Qing, she would definitely help him. Lu Qing definitely had a reason to encourage her to go out of the palace to admire the flowers. During the flower admiring season, there would be many scholars and beauties. Wherever she went, Lu Qing would definitely appear. Wanju was not stupid. He must have guessed it. System, Tangwa was deep in thought. Wanju did not see her calculating expression. This time, not only did Tangwa have to go out of the palace to admire the flowers, she also had to bring her brother, the crown prince. This crown prince had grown up under protection and did not have any competitors. No wonder he was so impulsive to help Tangwa. He was not prepared at all. If he didn't fall, who would? In order to live a carefree life in the future, this brother of hers must be able to pick a fight. System. He suspected that the host was training cows again. Cows plow the fields. She was only responsible for eating grains. When Crown Prince Tang Ji heard that Tangwa invited him to go out of the palace to admire the flowers, he naturally agreed. He doted on his only sister the most and liked to watch the fun. There was no reason for him to disagree. On the carriage, Tang Ji commented, "Guo, Lu Qing's reputation has been very good recently. From the poems he composed, it can be seen that he is indeed a rare talent." Tangwa said indifferently, There are many scholars in the capital who can write poems, and they are not worse than Lu Qing. Imperial brother, I'm afraid you have a misunderstanding. When Tang Ji heard the different evaluation of Lu Qing, his curiosity was piqued. Chapter 1463. All right, Guo-er. This problem is quite difficult for him. Tangji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It's just average. Even if he can't solve it completely, as long as he is knowledgeable and can be called a talent, he should be able to come up with some important points, right? Tangji nodded. That's true. Guo-er's thinking is right. It's really nothing if he only cares about poems and paintings. Just now, brother said that Lu Qing knows how to compose poems, and his poems are not bad. He's a rare talent. All right, let me ask you, brother. Do you see any special meaning in his poems? Tangji thought for a while and recalled a few poems. He frowned. Those poems looked beautiful and neat at first glance. When one read them for the first time, it was indeed very stunning. Lu Qing's poems were mostly about mountains and rivers and beauties. After reading it twice, it seemed that he was still writing about mountains and rivers and beauties. In the books, the poems that had been passed down for a long time expressed a deeper meaning through mountains and rivers and beauties. Some of them reflected the prosperity of the dynasty, some expressed the sorrow of a fallen country, and some reflected the hardships of the people. Thinking about it this way, Lu Qing's poems were really superficial. He couldn't be considered a talent. At most, they looked good and were beautiful to read. As the new top scholar, he was obsessed with mountains and rivers and beauties. It seemed that he was not doing his job properly. His recent poems are mostly praising beauties. Many people are guessing who he is praising. Some guess that it's Guo-er, some guess that it's second sister. Tangji was not a fool. He had already understood. Then, he smiled. Guo-er is still the smart one. No wonder she doesn't like someone like him. Just a few poems are enough to make me think that he's a rare talent. Now that I think about it, he's so high profile. He wrote poems praising beauties and made countless people in the imperial city guess. I'm afraid he has a motive. Tangji had already guessed it. Therefore, he was very disdainful of Lu Qing. With that kind of appearance, he still dared to covet his most beloved sister. Why didn't he go back and take a piss and look at himself in the mirror? The new top scholar didn't want to serve the country and the people. He actually wanted to be the prince consort. How useless. Tanghua could understand Lu Qing's thoughts. He didn't want to be sent out. He yearned for glory and wealth. It was not easy to achieve good results as an official outside. How could officialdom compare to being the emperor's son-in-law? He was not willing to walk that path in the first place. Perhaps he was tired of living a poor life. Getting close to the princess was like reaching the heavens in a single bound. As long as he operated it well, it would definitely not be bad. If it wasn't for Tanghua, wouldn't he have succeeded? Tanghua's destination was the Lingshan Temple. Here, not only could one burn incense and worship Buddha, but one could also admire flowers. On the way to the spiritual mountain temple, there were all kinds of bright flowers in full bloom. There was an endless stream of scholars and beauties coming and going. Most of the women with status sat in carriages and lifted a corner of the curtain to look outside. Tangxi would not miss such a grand occasion. Every year, the flowers would bloom the most beautifully during these few days. Those who loved landscape poetry would naturally not be absent. When they arrived at the Lingshan Temple, Tanghua sat in the carriage and heard Lu Qing's voice. After she got out of the carriage, Lu Qing's voice became louder. Tanghua ignored him. Tangji had thought it through before, so he went straight into the temple. He didn't even look at Lu Qing. Lu Qing could only look at the two of them. He didn't dare to chase after them. Wan Zhu, on the other hand, looked back reluctantly. The peak. Chapter 1465. Did you think that I would fly to the flowers like a butterfly just because I was fascinated by your looks or your music? Yun Bushio was speechless. I'm sorry. Yun Bushio couldn't refute her. He did have a motive for approaching her. But the moment she turned around and left, a feeling of extreme regret appeared in her heart. The regret he felt towards his previous decision made him unable to express it. That was why he called out to her. Just as she said, they were strangers. She turned around and left without any rudeness. My name is Yun Bushio. Yun Bushio looked at Tanghua and saw that she was smiling faintly. There was only a strange look in her eyes. He didn't know why, but the more he looked at her, the more he felt that his decision was very bad. But since he was already here, he had to get something. Tanghua was the eldest princess of Beixia, the most favored princess of the emperor, and the daughter of the empress. That precious item belonged to the empress. Only by approaching her would he have a chance to get it. At first, his plan was to sacrifice his looks to gain her love. He should be able to get it. Now that he saw her, he felt that he was a little despicable. He was also baffled by this inexplicable thought that popped up in his head. Vaguely, he had a feeling that he must not hurt her. Host, did that guy's curse lose its effect? I don't think so. Didn't you see his vexed look? I think it's because of the identity he chose. The original owner didn't come to this place, so naturally we couldn't meet. Then all this wouldn't have happened. As for why he wanted to get close to me, I'm not interested. Unless he's just interested in me. System, you dog. Now it seems that he has other motives. Forget it. Host, you don't want me anymore? Let nature take its course. If it's comfortable to get along, then we can start a relationship. If it's not comfortable, then don't start. She didn't force things like relationships. It was good if there was. Even if there wasn't, she could live. It wasn't that she couldn't go on without someone. At most, she would be a little lonely. Yun Bushio could only watch Tanghua leave. Even when her back disappeared, he still felt a little lost. Young master, you don't seem to be interested in the princess of the Northern Summer Kingdom. It's not that she's not interested in me. She saw through my ulterior motives and didn't even give me a chance to toy with her. Yun Bushio sighed. The more she thought about it, the more she wondered why he would listen to those people's rotten ideas and use such a method to attract her attention. He even said something like, "No woman can escape from his zither music." Wasn't this a woman who could see through him with a single glance? She was as intelligent as snow, but she was also exceptionally cold, and that coldness was only directed at him. When the attendant heard Yun Bushio's indistinct grievance, he was especially surprised. Chapter 1466. Now that he closed his eyes, all he could see was her cold back view as she left. Yun Bushio looked at the zither in front of him and slapped it. The zither instantly turned into powder. Young master, this is the zither that has accompanied you for more than 10 years. The attendant completely did not understand why Yun Bushio would destroy his beloved zither. Yun Bushio stood up and said, I won't play the zither in the future. Attendant, young master, your zither skills are superb. You are known as a zither fanatic. The zither is more important than your life. How can you stop playing just like that? This was not like his young master. Yun Bushio waved his sleeves. The powder of the zither scattered, and all fell to the ground. He looked at the place where Tanghua disappeared. For some reason, he felt especially sad. Just now, he seemed to have gone to something very important. The attendant looked at Yun Bushio's sorrowful aura and did not say anything. He had never seen the young master so sad before. Was it because the eldest princess ignored him that he was sad? That was true. No matter where the young master went, there was no woman who did not like him. A woman suddenly appeared, dissed the young master, and left coldly. Such a cold treatment was a blow to the young master's self-confidence. It was not strange that he was sad. Help me find out what the eldest princess likes. Young master, are you planning to change the route? No, Yun Bushio denied in his heart. He was planning to get close to her sincerely. As for what he wanted to do with her, he did not understand at the moment. Great host, that guy destroyed the zither in a fit of anger. Hee. Tongzi, your smile is so wretched. Tanghua pursed her lips and smiled. System, host, I am so cute. How can you say that I am wretched? Host, listening to their conversation. It seems that they want to get close to you and get some medicinal herbs from the Empress. No matter what they want to get, if they want to use such methods to get it, no. Scram. System. I think they seem to have realized something and do not intend to do that. He still hoped that the host would not be so lonely. This world was still all right. As long as Lu Qing's actions were restrained, the host had an imperial father, an imperial mother, and an imperial brother who doted on her. If there was also an obedient imperial son-in-law who treated her well, then it would be perfect. Host, please be very happy. This was his wish. Who would have thought that that guy would get negative points the moment he appeared, leaving a bad impression on the host? If he wanted to continue, it would be difficult. The trust of the host was easy to obtain, but it was also the hardest to obtain. She hated people who approached her with ulterior motives. This would always remind her of some particularly unhappy memories. The system was still worried when it suddenly quivered. Host, Lu Qing is making a move. What happened? Then, Tanghua saw Lu Qing and Wan Zhu talking through the system's surveillance screen. Lu Qing told Wan Zhu that the scenery by the lake was very good, and he wanted to draw a picture. But after thinking for a long time, he felt that something was missing in the picture. When he saw Wan Zhu, he finally understood that there was a beauty missing in the picture. He asked Wan Zhu to lead Tanghua to him. He only needed to walk around the lake, and he would definitely not disturb the princess. He only thought that the eldest princess was the most beautiful woman in the imperial city. Of course, Wan Zhu could not wait to agree to such a thing. If the princess was happy, she might take a fancy to Lu Qing. Wan Zhu had long been mesmerized by Lu Qing's talent and appearance. He did not notice the determined look in Lu Qing's eyes. Not long after, Wan Zhu ran in front of Tanghua. Princess, the scenery by the lake is very good. Do you want to take a look? Peek. Chapter 1467. Your Highness, isn't the scenery by the lake beautiful? Wan Zhu heaved a sigh of relief when he saw how beautiful the scenery by the lake was. If it wasn't beautiful, wouldn't he be deceiving the princess? It's all right. Dear host, Tangxi is coming towards you. She should be here for Lu Qing. The system secretly observed the surroundings. That Lu Qing's motive was so obvious. He must be up to something. Tanghua and Tangxi were getting closer and closer to each other. They only needed to raise their heads to see each other. Of course, Tangxi couldn't just turn around and leave. There was a hint of jealousy and unwillingness on her face. In the end, she still walked in front of Tanghua. Eldest sister. Second sister. Are you also here to see the scenery by the lake? Tangxi nodded gently. Yes, the scenery is the most beautiful at this time of the year. It would be a pity to miss it. As she spoke, Tangxi's eyes were looking around for something. Didn't you say that Lu Zhuangyuan is here? Tangxi whispered to the palace maid beside her. The palace maid whispered back, I've already asked around. Lu Zhuangyuan should be here. Your Highness, this lake is a little big. There are beautiful flowers blooming around it and lush grass. Maybe it's these that are hiding Lu Zhuangyuan's figure. After hearing this explanation, Tangxi's expression became much better. Dear host, there are people running towards you in a panic. I think they're coming for you. Be careful. As soon as the system's words fell, several people rushed towards Tanghua's position. No one noticed that those people were rushing over. In the blink of an eye, when those people were about to hit Tanghua, she grabbed Ing Zhu's wrist and dodged to the rockery. At the same time, she kicked Wan Zhu when no one was paying attention. With this kick, Wan Zhu was directly kicked towards the direction of the lake. When those people rushed over, Tangxi couldn't dodge in time. She was also pushed towards the lake and coincidentally collided with Wan Zhu. Wan Zhu subconsciously grabbed Tangxi and Tangxi did the same. In the end, both of them fell into the lake. Your Highness, are you all right? Ing Zhu was dumbfounded when she saw this. She was still in a state of shock when she recalled the dangerous scene just now. Your Highness, just now? Ing Zhu remembered that Tanghua had pulled her back just now. Otherwise, she would have also fallen into the water. Before she could finish speaking, Tanghua pressed down on her hand and said, It was all thanks to Ing Zhu that this consort didn't fall into the water. Let's go and see how second sister is doing. Ingzhu was stunned for a moment and stole a glance at Tangwa's expression. She was a smart and steady person. Just now, it was clearly Her Highness who dodged quickly and grabbed her in passing. Why did she have to take the credit for this? Chapter 1468. Dear host, your kick just now was a classic. Tongzi, have you learned how to flatter people? Lu Qing was already prepared. When he saw someone fall into the water, he didn't even hesitate. Moreover, he recognized Wan Zhu's clothes and mistakenly thought that the person who fell into the water at the same time as Wan Zhu was Tanghua. He immediately jumped into the lake and swam towards the two of them. In the midst of saving people, he didn't have time to look at the other person's appearance. He only cared about bringing them to the shore first. Tanghua didn't bring her entourage to protect her because she wanted to beat them at their own game. As for Tang Shi, she didn't bring her entourage because she wanted to meet Lu Qing alone. She was afraid that it would be too big and scare Lu Qing. Before long, Lu Qing had already brought Tang Shi and Wan Zhu to the shore. Wan Zhu was fine. He wasn't a delicate princess like Tang Shi and didn't faint. Lu Qing swam him to the shore with a little help. As for Tang Shi, she flopped in the water a few times and choked on water. She was now in a semi-conscious state. Lu Qing carefully carried her and didn't let go even when they reached the shore. At this moment, many people had already gathered around, including Tanghua and Tang Shi's entourage, the young masters and young mistresses of the imperial city, and the current crown prince, Tang Ji. Seeing this scene, they were a little surprised. The clothes of the three people were soaked, and Lu Qing was still carrying Tang Shi. No matter how liberal the customs were, it was inappropriate for an unmarried man and woman to hug each other like this, especially when Tang Shi was a princess. Lu Qing didn't care about the gazes around him and planned to wake the person in his arms. Just as he was about to pat Tang Shi's face, his body stiffened and he froze on the spot. He subconsciously looked up and saw Tanghua standing at the side and watching. Tanghua asked at the right time, "How is second royal sister?" Lu Qing's body stiffened, but he still chose to wake Tang Shi up in the end. He gently patted Tang Shi's back. After spitting out a few mouthfuls of water, Tang Shi slowly woke up. Her palace maid hurriedly wrapped a cloak around her body. "What happened?" Tang Shi asked. Tanghua said lightly, "Just now, someone rushed out of nowhere and knocked my second sister and my personal palace maid, Wan Zhu, into the lake. Coincidentally, no one knew how to swim at that time, and Lu Zhuangyuan came just in time to save second sister." Tang Shi couldn't hide the joy in her eyes. In the end, she pursed her lips tightly to prevent her expression from being seen through. Lu Qing's face darkened. He had painstakingly designed such a scheme to target the current first princess. He had never expected that the one who would fall into the water would be the second princess. "Second royal sister, what do you think about today's matter?" Chapter 1469. He had calculated all of this. He only thought that if he and the princess hugged each other in public, their clothes drenched, then the two of them would be tied together. Then, he and the princess would be inseparable. He forgot that in addition to becoming the princess's son-in-law, he might not be favored by the princess and lose his head in the end. "Big Sister Huang, what's the second option?" Tang Shi was a little anxious. She didn't want Lu Qing to die. Tanghua's lips curled into a faint smile. Lu Qing looked at her noble and sharp aura and felt a little regretful. Why did he have to provoke this first princess? "Second, you become a monk." This time, Tang Shi's face was even paler. She clenched her sleeves tightly and bit her lips. She was only 16 years old. How could she be a nun and be alone for the rest of her life? "What's the third option?" Tang Shi remembered what Tanghua said just now. There were 3 ways, so there should be a last one. Tanghua narrowed her eyes and said, "Marry Lu Zhuangyuan and become the second sister's son-in-law. Then, everything that happened today will be nothing. Not only can you protect your reputation, but also Lu Zhuangyuan's life." The people present were silent. Lu Qing, on the other hand, was slightly relieved. Tang Shi had already walked to Tanghua and asked Ingzhu in a low voice about what happened just now. After hearing it, his face didn't look good. He just lived a happy life since he was young without any competitors. But he was not a fool. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? This Lu Qing really didn't seem to be a good person. Therefore, he was inclined to kill Lu Qing. As soon as this thought came to his mind, Tang Shi said, "Then I'm willing to take Lu Zhuangwen as my son-in-law." Lu Qing was completely relieved. So be it, the second princess. After seeing Tang's ruthless and terrible side, Lu Qing completely gave up. Although Tang Shi was not as good as the eldest princess, she was still the second princess. She was only less favored than the eldest princess. Compared to the eldest princess who couldn't be controlled, the second princess was easier to control. At least, Tang Shi's faint love for him made him feel more relieved. Lu Qing, are you willing to become this consort's prince consort? It is Lu Qing's fortune to be favored by the second princess. Lu Qing is naturally willing. Thus, everyone was happy about this matter. Tangwa glanced at Wan Zhu, who was squatting beside Lu Qing, and said, "Now that my personal maid's reputation has been ruined, would Zhuang be willing to stay by my side? If she's unwilling, I'll arrange a marriage for her. If she's unwilling, I'll just send her off as a nun." Tangwa sounded rather regretful. "System, your acting is so good." Wan Zhu was scared out of his wits. He looked at Lu Qing pitifully and then turned to look at Tangwa's cold face. Knowing that she would not be able to return to the palace today, she simply knelt in front of Tang Shi. "This servant doesn't want to marry. I saved the second princess of my own accord. From now on, I will serve the second princess and Zhuangyuan wholeheartedly for the rest of my life." Tang Shi's originally happy mood was washed away just like that. In front of so many people, she couldn't refuse directly, could she? When she fell directly into the lake, she didn't notice. But Wan Zhu did pull her, and they fell together. "Then you will serve this consort from now on." Tang Shi felt as if she had swallowed a fly. However, so many people saw that Wan Zhu fell down with her. Wan Zhu even pulled her back. If she didn't agree, she didn't know what these people would say. Peak. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.